You're listening to the Clutter Fairy Weekly, a weekly webcast and podcast brought to you by the Clutter Fairy in Houston, Texas. If you'd like to participate in one of our live webcasts, please visit cfhou.com/weekly. You'll find a calendar of upcoming webcasts, as well as instructions for joining the Zoom meeting via the app or by phone. We'd love to see you. That URL again is cfhou.com/weekly. Now here's the weekly episode. Enjoy.
Hi, Clutter Fairy fans. This is the Clutter Fairy Weekly for October 21st, 2025. I'm your co-host, Ed Gumnick, and I'm speaking with Gayle Goddard, certified professional organizer and owner of the Clutter Fairy in Houston, Texas.
Hi, everybody. The Clutter Fairy Weekly is the webcast and podcast that digs deep into the clutter that piles up between you and the life that you want to be living. We explore the habits and behaviors that lead to clutter, and we suggest strategies to slow the accumulation, reduce the collection, and comfortably manage the stuff we decide to keep.
If you're new to our Zoom meeting, we want to let you know that you can share your comments and questions via the chat, and I'll try to make sure Gayle addresses them before we move on to another topic. You can also use the raise hand feature if you'd like to ask a question yourself via audio or video. And we're streaming the webcast live on Facebook, so you can share your questions and comments there, and I'll relay them to Gayle. We're going to start by recapping last week's weekly tittle, which was called Stubby To-Do List. The assignment was to experiment with the stubby to-do list, one of the productivity ideas suggested in ADD-friendly ways to organize your life, the book we covered last week. Let's hear from our participants in Zoom and on Facebook. Who experimented with a stubby to-do list this week? Please let us know in the comments. YouTube viewer Persephone, aka Kit, shared her take on ADD-friendly ways to organize your life in a comment on YouTube. Kit writes, I'll state here, though I critique this book quite a bit and haven't actually finished reading it, I do believe it has valuable insights that can help my daughter and me. I shall continue to read and take notes on it, then study those notes to hopefully internalize the lessons. I want to be able to implement some of their strategies and tactics ad hoc when I notice opportunities to do so. Thank you for featuring this book in your book club. It has been well worth my time and effort.
Thanks for sharing your thoughts about the book. I agree it contains a lot of good strategies to support you. And if the Clutter Fairy audience hasn't tried any of the ideas, I suggest that you consider the book as a source of random tittles. You can try one of the book's strategies to test their effectiveness anytime. Don't forget to try it more than once in a few different scenarios, just to see if it can be useful to you in some situation. And if your brain is neurotypical, don't assume these clutter management suggestions won't work for you. Just evaluate them as out-of-the-box thinking for you and give them a try anyway. Thanks to everybody who gave feedback and worked on the survey. We appreciate that you participated in reading our book club selection. I think that the book definitely still holds up and still applies and still can be used by anybody, but very based on the responses that we got, it's much more appealing to people that are neurotypical. So, I mean, they're not neurotypical. So, if you are, just give them a try anyway. I thought the stubby to-do list was a great suggestion, and we didn't get any specific responses about people trying that one. So I was hoping we would, but I think keeping a little bit short, focused. This is what I'm trying to accomplish today. This is what I believe that if I finish these today, I'm being successful. I'm having a good day. I think creating that focus down to 3 to 5 things and having that in big notes, on a sticky pad in big letters, I think it's a great strategy for keeping focused in a day when you're feeling chaotic and there's lots going on, and you can still look at that sticky note and go, oh yeah, I'm still trying to accomplish these 3 things.
Yeah.
And it serves as a great way to keep you circling back to stay on track.
I used to use as part of my time and task management system the idea of the trifecta. If I get A, B, and C done, today is a win.
Right?
And it could be, one from the work that clients are waiting for column, and one for the, obligations to my partner or a family member column, and one that's, the third thing could be I'm going to get an adequate amount of exercise today,
Mm-hmm.
and if
Your
I,
personal goals,
yeah. And then I often found that trifecta wasn't three wasn't really enough for me to feel like I nailed the day. And
right?
I found out that in horse racing, which is where trifecta comes from, um, betting on the four top winners, I think it's called the superfecta. That's four. And then there's a bet called super high five, where you're betting on five
Oh my
if you're as
goodness.
so ambitious. But I like that idea. I think that and that's I think useful for the stubby to-do list is a useful idea for anyone who struggles with the sense of overwhelm on when you look at every single day's to-do list.
Right, that's so
If
huge,
you
right?
just universally start your days looking at your to-do list and thinking, yeah, there's no way this is going to happen, then the stubby to-do list might be a nice change of pace to lift yourself up by making a much more realistic list to cover.
Right. And I
Um,
see comments about it now.
yeah, let me read some comments. I want to ask for clarification on her comment because she said, "I have a huge want to do dump list on my phone list for years already." Oh, okay, sorry. The first time I read it, I couldn't make sense of it. Now I get it. So when she thinks of the things to do, she puts them on her phone and she's got
Right,
years collected. She says some things fall off the list by default because no longer necessary.
right.
And that's kind of the in talk in GTD uh terminology, that's the inbox, where you throw
Hmm.
every idea you collect.
Your master list,
Well, it's not your master list, it's your collection spot.
hmm
And then you're supposed, in GTD methodology, you are then supposed to process that and organize it
do stuff with
and
it.
and and yeah, execute. Um, Jacqueline says, I got a new phone and my Zoom settings seem to be lost, so she's not identifying as Jacqueline, but we know. Um, she says, I have a friend who is also working on decluttering her house. I'm very handy and she is not. I went over to help her hang some shelves and some wall decor. She also had two giant bags of clothes to declutter. She wants me to make a memory blanket for her using some of the fabrics. What I don't use will get donated. She was very happy to see those bags leave her house.
Right? And no pressure on turning it around. I think the biggest, it was just a way for her to let those fabrics disappear from her present. And so good on her for releasing them, good on you for taking them, and then hopefully you can uh, make that project happen for her and hand her back something. And then she has to be really nice to you. Because it's a lot
Right.
of work making that fabric into a blanket or some other object is going to be a lot of work. So,
Lisa Beth said she also uses a trifecta. And then
mm,
JB says, I think using a whiteboard would be a great place for the stubby to-do list.
mm.
Eye-catching, redirecting on task, and adaptive.
And then, if you go out of the house, then you copy it down on a post-it notes because you can't take the whiteboard with you, right?
Right.
But if particularly if those your three things you have to accomplish are like errands where you're out running around, like I got to go to the post office or I got to go to the bank or whatever. Um, Take that little post-it with you so you don't lose track of what's at home on your whiteboard.
Linda says, I frequently make a stubby to-do list in a limited way for the specific task of running errands.
Mm,
I list them in driving or walking sequence and stick the post-it to the dashboard. Very helpful.
right. Sometimes it's easy to get distracted when you're out running around. And if you're out for the purpose of accomplishing these three errands and you get distracted while you're out running around, then having that list to remind you that, oh, yeah, I'm supposed to be going to the post office. I'm not supposed to be stopping off at this store, right? It's a way to keep you on task out there too.
Dorothy asked, what is GTD? I said GTD without spelling it out first.
You
That's
did.
Getting Things Done, which is a book by David Allen, and it's about task management and productivity.
It's his task management system.
Yeah. Let's see. Deborah says, I have a brain dump list. I just dump everything that's on my mind in a small journal. I don't have to act on everything. Just knowing it's written down seems to clarify my muddled brain. Later, I will glance
Mm.
over it and see that it all got magically done.
Yay. That's awesome.
Nice.
Well, and her brain dump is what was being described as on the phone, right? Somebody was dumping all their stuff on the
Connie,
phone.
right. Connie
So
said,
that's
yeah,
Connie's brain
yeah,
dump.
right,
It's just on the phone instead. But yeah, and then you have a list and you can just be working from it all the time. But if you have a huge list, you can't be working all of it at the same time, right? And so you need you need to be able to go today. I'm going to pick a few things off the list and go accomplish those and
right.
put all my focus and effort in making those things happen. And then you get to go scratching back off the list, which is super fun for everyone,
Yeah,
apparently.
and the trouble with just, you can just keep dumping things on a list that grows and grows and grows, but at some point you have to do some kind of curation. You can't just like it's not reasonable to just assume that the thing that's made it to the top of the list is the most important or urgent
Mhm.
or both. So you have to do some kind of differentiation, and that's what the stubby to-do list idea from the book was, that you're going to look through all the things available and pick a few that
The things
are
that
going to
might have
be
deadlines.
today's ambitions.
Yeah, the things that are going to impact you the most in the moment. And getting things done rearranges those items based on how you execute them. So they subset that list by these are all phone calls I have to make. These are all
Right.
things I have to do on the computer. These are all things I have to do outside the house. And so they basically batch them based on where you would execute them.
Right. What David Allen calls context. If it's
Hmm.
something you have to be in the office to do, there's no point in paying attention to it when you're at home, and vice versa.
Yeah, yeah, like you can't be if you're going to be home for whatever reason, then those items that are on your list that are about errands running around in the world, those aren't what you're focusing on right then because you're at home in front of the computer. And then when you're in the car, you can't think about stuff that you have to be in front of the computer for because you're not in front of the computer in the car. So it is a context that orientation that makes sense just in terms of logistics. Like you can't be looking at your computer and driving the car at the same time. So,
Right.
oh, and the stubby to-do list comes from the book we reviewed last week, ADD Friendly Ways to Organize Your Life. It was one of their strategy suggestions.
Okay, we should get on to our main topic.
Hey,
Our perceptions of the value of our stuff can cloud our judgment about what really supports the life we want to be living and what doesn't. But a focus on our values helps us ground our decluttering decisions in a better understanding of ourselves. Today, we're going to explore value-based patterns of thinking that lead to clutter and offer strategies for re-evaluating what we really want.
everything extra in our house that we've decided to keep stays because we've assigned it a type of value. And I'm saying value in air quotes. We've decided that an item may be useful in the future, it still has use left, or it represents our memories of someone or some life event, so it has sentimental value. Those value assignments lead us to hold on to things we're not actually using or need. Consumer culture can also influence our value system, making us feel that a whole wide variety of possessions equal happiness or success, and prompting us to accumulate more than necessary. In this way, our notions of value contribute to clutter by creating a fear of letting go of items with that perceived value. So let's explore those assigned values of those extra objects in more detail. So these are value-based reasons for keeping clutter. The first one is the just in case mentality. We've talked about this so much. Holding on to items like broken appliances or old gadgets because you believe you might need them someday may arise from an exaggerated fear of scarcity and lead to a cycle of accumulation. Many a garage or spare closet is full of things being kept because they're still useful, they're still functioning. They might come in handy someday. But when that day comes, will you remember about all those spare items that you've kept? Will you be able to find them? Will they be 20 years old and starting to deteriorate from age? The things that people forget is that usefulness is not frozen in time. Just because you're storing it doesn't make the item's aging process stop. Some things are made of sturdier material than others, and if it was cheap to begin with, it likely doesn't have a long-term staying power of a more expensive version of the same thing. Fabric, elastic, plastic, they all start to age and disintegrate over time. Store the item in the garage or in the attic, adding the element of extreme heat or extreme cold, and you just accelerate the disintegration process. It's just falling apart in your closet. And if it's in a garage in Houston, it's just drying out exponentially fast and it's going to crumble to dust someday. So you might need it someday, but by then it may be falling apart and usefulness has been squandered by being stored and ignored for a decade. My point here is keeping the item just in case the usefulness comes in handy may be a fool's errand. And it's not a great reason to keep something extra that you're not using in your regular life. The next value is the sentimental value. I'm sure we can all relate to this one. Items can hold emotional or sentimental value, and letting go of them can feel like losing a part of yourself or like losing your memory of or a connection to another person. We get hung out to dry on this one when we keep a whole bunch of sentimental items, when we can't curate the keepsakes to a reasonable level, but try to keep everything related to that person. We keep furniture, artwork, photos, letters, decor items a lot of times, especially Christmas, handwriting examples, rugs, truly anything associated with that person. And we end up trying to incorporate someone's whole life into our home. And of course, it won't fit. Just because you can remember the table at grandma's house doesn't mean it will fit into your house. You already have a table or two or three and don't really have a place for it, but you keep it just for the memory. Sometimes the memory associated with an object clouds our judgment about whether to keep an object. And we end up ultimately keeping way more than makes sense for our living space and our lifestyle.
Well, and we can end up living in a museum of that person's life instead of
A reflection
a
of ours.
workspace and reflection of our own life. Yeah.
That's totally true. Consumer culture is a problem too. Societal messages often link possessions to success or status and happiness, leading to an urge to acquire new things even if they aren't needed. This is a huge reason for clutter. We always need something else because it's new and cool and the latest. We need another set of dishes because they're so beautiful, regardless of whether we already have four sets of dishes in the kitchen. We get the message that we'd be happier if we just get this one more Christmas decoration or the latest electronic gadget. Huge variety of things does not equal more happy. The latest and greatest thing doesn't truly make us better people. It just makes us someone with less money and more things.
Or more streaming services.
Right?
You know, I this
Yeah.
the consumer culture category is, where I think that, fear of missing out,
Mhm.
clutter comes in,
Yeah.
and a lot of that maybe that's more financial clutter and uh I don't know if you call it entertainment clutter. It's not really in the way in any sense
Yeah.
to have five or six streaming services. But it certainly clutters your mind and clutters your decision making about, what are we gonna watch tonight, or
Makes your
how am I
options
gonna use my time?
bigger and yeah, and harder to
Yeah.
make decisions and choices, right? I think ultimately it's just the idea that we need to get it because other people have it, that we don't want to miss out on something that other people are experiencing, ends up costing us money and leading us to live with more objects than we would typically want to have, want to live with, be surrounded by. And every moment, every company is trying a new way to convince you that you're going to die if you don't have their object. And they're constantly selling you the next and latest and greatest version, the newest edition, the upgrade, the whatever. iPhone puts out new products every year specifically to capture you and to convince you you got to buy the new one, even though you bought the other one last year. They're trying real hard to do that, and we buy that. We totally, we bite that fish hook a lot. And then we end up with way more stuff in our house than we really want to deal with and wonder how it happened. And part of it is because, the United States is great marketers of how, our life is going to be so much better if we just buy the next thing that they have to sell us. And ultimately, not so much. And I think being a responsible consumer and being more of an adult about how and why you spend your money is one of the ways that you show that you're adulting better. When you recognize that that pressure is a sales pitch to make them money and for you to bite on their product, and that they have no concern over the state of your situation, of your financial position, of the amount of stuff that's in your home already. They really don't care about any of those things. They just want you to give up your money to them and take home something else to put in your house. And I think how you react to that is a reflection of your maturing perception of the value of the money that you've earned and what you want to do with it and how you want to live with it in terms of the way that you create your house, your space, the way that you guys are living. And I think it's a way to reflect, yeah, I'm winning this battle or I'm losing this battle. If you succumb to all of the advertising they put out.
Um, Connie says, if I see something I would like, I take a photo, and if it's still on my mind, say a week or month later, I put it on my wish list.
There you go. And that's a responsible way to not impulse buy and to let your immediate attraction to the object, it's pretty, it's clever, it's whatever, sort of fade and resonate through your life and see if it still makes sense for you later or not. And then it goes on the wish list and you make a plan for it instead of impulse spending the money. And so I think if you just are making choices like that to I've thought about it. I still want it. I'm not reacting immediately to the commercial or the email or the link. I'm still thinking about it. And then I'm going to make a considered choice and I'm going to plan for the expense. That's a much more reasonable way to acquire something than to immediately react. And, you see the picture, you're in the shopping, you throw something in the shopping cart without even thinking about it and buy, and then wonder why it's not working out, why you're having trouble. So, why you're running out of money, for instance. I think it's a good thing to notice and to try to disengage yourself from that constant pressure to believe that the thing that they're selling is going to make your life 100% better and you have to have it right now.
Some great comments on consumer culture. Deborah says, since I started decluttering in earnest, I have less interest in shopping. Part of it is that I am concerned about the environmental impact. What will be the
Mhm.
end life of this product? But also, how will this item have an impact on my space? Where will it live in my home?
Right?
It's great to have all of that in your mind before you pull the trigger on purchases. It really is.
Hmm.
That's a great
And it also
awareness.
reflects the fact that, once you start doing a bunch of work to declutter, the thrill of adding back into the house changes.
Yeah.
Because when you've spent a bunch of work, you've done a bunch of work and gone through the pain and suffering of deciding that something needs to go or be donated, or it has to, you got to find a parking space for it. You got to try to use it up. When you experience those uh, consequences in earnest, it colors how you see, okay, I'm going to buy this thing at the store and then I got to am I going to be like, 2 weeks from now, am I going to be decluttering this? Like you pay more attention when you've started doing that work and you know how much work it is and you know how hard it is for you to do what you're doing and to make choices about keep toss and to run the errands to the donation place and all that stuff that's happening. And once you start having that experience regularly, the thrill of adding something into the house, it changes. It doesn't seem like such a good idea after all.
Um,
Oh,
Michelle says, I have unsubscribed to so many things because the constant urgent and short-term deal, she put urgent and deal in quotation marks,
Yes.
emails stress me out. It turns out I don't miss any of it.
Right? Because it's not if you don't even know it's happening, you don't know that you're missing the deal of a lifetime.
Right.
It's not important. And
Hey,
so keeps you
it's
out of it.
it's late October, so it's a good time to share one of my favorite annual email decluttering efforts, which is the Black Friday purge.
Ah,
Whenever marketers start sending me emails about their Black Friday offerings, I unsubscribe. And if they give the opportunity to tell them why I unsubscribed, I say, because you mentioned Black Friday. I'm not playing that game. I'm just not. And so I unsubscribe from them all, and I never miss them. I just I never miss a marketing email that I've cut off.
right. And you never think, oh gosh, I wish I had gone shopping on Black Friday and spent all that money.
Right?
Like, no, you don't. You don't. It's a crazy, crazy day that you don't really have to pay attention to at all. Like you can just ignore. Okay, thank
All
you.
right.
Thanks for those updates. Um, the next value that we're going to talk about is the fear of making the wrong decision. Uncertainty about whether to keep or discard something can cause anxiety and paralysis, leading to items being left in a state of clutter. What if we give away something that we might need later? What if our kids want that in the future? What if we give away something important? The answer is always we'll deal with it. We'll get a new item this one time, or we'll figure out how to do it another way with something we already have. How about believing that we can deal with whatever comes up and find another way to cope, even if we gave away something important? When somebody, the example I always give is imagine that your house gets burned down, catches on fire, burns to the ground. Everything in there is gone. And then you have to reconstruct your paper life, your everything about your life has to be recreated, not the least of which is, oh, I've lost my birth certificate, oh, I've lost my passport, oh, I've whatever. There's a way for you to recover those things. And yes, it takes steps and it's annoying as all get out, but it can be done. So that's a really extreme version of if everything about me disappears, and not only can I not find it, but it is destroyed beyond recovery, there is still a way for you to recover. And it will be a lot of work, but it's possible. And so that's a super extreme version. And any other version of, gee, I lost my driver's license. Gee, I've lost my passport. Gee, I can't find that specific thing that I really need right now. There's always a way to do it differently, recover, cope with what's missing and what isn't there. And you are a viable adult with skills and a brain, and you can figure it out. And it won't be, it'll be annoying. I'll grant you that recovering when you don't have something, that you've accidentally given away the wrong thing, that made a decision in the panic and now you're sorry that you gave it up, but you can always still recover. And so it's not as big of a dramatic shutdown of your life as you think. And we worry about making the wrong decision because we think the consequences are going to be so dire, but they're never going to be as bad as the house burning down. They're just going to be inconvenient. And so you don't have to be as afraid as you think you do. You don't have to be so worried about what if I make the wrong decision? Well, you'll recover. It'll be okay. And the likelihood is that you'll make a lot of decisions and most of them will be fine and it won't cause you a problem at all. And so you can trust that, yeah, none of us are 100%. None of us make the right decision 100% of the time exactly right. And and then we cope with the ones that we make mistakes on. And the rest of them, we make them and it's fine and we move on. And so it's not going to be a high percentage of stuff that you have to deal with. And most of the decisions that you make are going to be perfectly fine. And the ones that turn out to be a mistake, yeah, you recover. you've wasted more money than this. You've had bigger problems than any of this. Do I need to keep something or give away something? Like, you've had to make choices like what school do I go to and am I going to marry this person? Those are much bigger decisions for you to worry about than what do I do if I threw away the wrong thing or I gave away the wrong thing. Like on the scale of major life decisions and worrying about whether it's right or not, giving away a piece of thing in your house, pretty far down the list, truthfully.
Suzanne says, I have to work on what's the worst thing that can happen if I release, especially for small things like eek, a clipped article or recipe for one day, since I'd never find it anyways. Um, I think so everything we've been talking about so far is a sense of value that is artificial or maybe, comes from an emotional place, a sentimental place, and so on.
Mm-hmm.
This one, I think the fear of making the wrong decision is assigning sort of artificial value of certainty to things, like
Yeah.
if I keep this thing, then I know what the future is going to be. And of course, no thing that you're keeping is really securing you against the million things that can happen to you.
Right. Right. Right.
But I think,
It
but the stuff creates a I hate to say false, but maybe that's the right word, sense of
inflated.
inflated sense of certainty. Yeah,
Hmm. Yeah, I see your point there. And it's the certainty that you will be able to do something a certain way or you will be able to handle a task with this object. But I always go back to there's always another way. Like
right.
you can always if you don't use this for it, you will use something else for it and it'll be okay. There's not very many situations where there's only one solution and it's only for one product and it's only for one to solve one problem and there is no other way to deal with it. I just that's not realistic.
Yeah. Terry says, at one time we used to buy each other little jokey gifts and trinkets that caught our eye. Now
Mm,
we consider how much amusement does it bring versus having it around forever. And
right?
Connie came right back with the suggestion I was going to make. She says, "Oh, I've taken a photo and sent it via WhatsApp to a friend or two and write, I would have bought this thing for you, but I know a photo will also do to let you know I'm thinking of you."
Right? And they get the joke and they don't have to do something with the object. Right? If
Right?
if it makes you giggle or makes you think of them and they don't need to have it. Like they can have the thought that you sent with the photograph and that's enough, right?
It occurs to me that if I still had the habit of shopping in greeting card stores, which I
Mm.
don't, I've kicked that habit. Now when I find all those cards that are perfect for my friend Todd, I could just take pictures of them and send them
Send
to
them to
him.
Todd.
He'll never actually get a greeting card from me again, just photos. Okay,
But
let's go on.
he'll he'll laugh at your photo anyway.
Yes.
I know Todd very well. Okay, so the most common value of an item that triggers people to keep it is the perceived monetary value. We believe that an item is worth some amount of money, and that makes us keep an item just because of that. So, this is where we talk about monetary value again. It's been a frequent topic over the years. And Ed suggested a great example of artificial monetary value around diamonds, which is why we have diamonds on the screen. The value is completely controlled by the few companies who own the diamond mines. They artificially control the market for diamonds and manufacturing high level of scarcity and keeping prices really high. At the same time, they sell consumers on the high value and the need to own diamonds as a reflection of either wealth in terms of wearing various jewelry or devotion in terms of needing a wedding ring made of diamonds that's a huge multiple of your monthly salary. The value of diamonds is a collective agreement we all participate in. And that's not really changing anytime soon. They've they've embedded that
They've
belief
locked it
into,
in. Yeah.
yeah, it's like it would be really hard to shift that one at this point. Other collectibles, though, are less artificially controlled, and the value swings with public interest as it waxes and wanes. Think about how Art Deco furniture is popular right now, while the heavier, dark stained antique furniture is not as popular. Or about the interest in specific artist paintings that are in a style that goes through periods of high interest, and then that style becomes less popular. The monetary value fluctuates with the interest of the public. And so generally, we think that we need to keep something because it is worth money. But I will, I'm interjecting here that just because it's worth money, in air quotes, isn't a good enough reason to keep it around if it's cluttering you and bugging you. And so figuring out a way to let it go, and if you need to turn it into cash to feel comfortable, fine, go about the business of turning it into cash. But don't hold on to something that's worth money that you don't really care about for any other reason, just to keep that perceived monetary value parked in a corner of your house somewhere. It's not becoming that value. It's not turning into that cash being parked in the corner of your house. And that value that you think it has may not be, it may not, it may not be stable. It may not stay that value. And the prime example that I have all the time with people is, with clients in particular, they've inherited the china, the crystal, and the silverware from a few generations back, and they're the last ones standing. And now that china that everybody before spent a bunch of money on and that gave them a sense of value and like that showed their wealth, that they had a really fancy china and silver and crystal, and that was part of why you got everybody to collectively buy it for you when you got married, because it was too expensive to buy on your own, and all that stuff that was a huge part of the social construct around, as a married couple, we need to own these things that show our value and
Our
wealth,
status.
our status.
Hmm.
And now those things have no value. They are not in use. It's not part of how we entertain very much anymore. They don't get used in the same level as they were back in the day. Our cultural norms around that have shifted. And so the value of the crystal, once very stable and very high, is now not high. The china, you can buy whole sets of china for a few pennies on the dollar at a resale store. Stuff that's fabulous and beautiful and wonderful. It isn't that the beauty of the object has changed, it's that the market for them has changed. And so you may be left holding the bag. There's a lot of boomers that inherited that stuff from generations past, and they were the ones that left with the object where the value has rolled right out of it, and it's worth hardly anything anymore. And so, the silverware, if it's sterling, its value is in the weight of the silver that's in it. If it's silver plate, it's a whole different ball of wax. Like again, the value has plummeted. And so keeping it for a monetary value and parking it in your house does not guarantee that the monetary value stays. And it doesn't mean that you're going to realize that value yourself. And it's not a good enough reason to keep it in your house. That's what I'm saying. And if it's important to you to realize the money, then go about the business of turning it into cash and seeing how much value you can actually get out of it instead of your in perception of what the value was. It when the rubber hits the road and somebody's actually willing to put cash down on it, that tells you what the market really bears for the object, and turning it into cash, or rejecting that. Hey, that's not enough money. You're not giving me enough money. I'm going to keep it in the back corner of the house until somebody else buys it. It's like, okay, but that person may not exist and you may not realize it in your lifetime, and you may, donate it down to the next generation who has to do the same thing as you. So monetary value is not a good enough reason to keep something in your house. And if you're wedded to the fact that it has value, then go about the business of trying to sell it, and either learn from experience that it's not, or that it is, and you can trade it for cash, and then the object's out of your house forever, which is the point of all that discussion. We keep stuff that we inherit or that we have had at some point because we think it's worth something monetarily, and we don't feel good about donating it. It's like, okay, so turn it into money, get it out of there.
May says, I took a picture of my $98 blouse with price tag still on it from the 80s, then,
Mm,
then gave it away. I still think of it, but no, I'll get over it.
right? And it
When,
was worth $98 in the 80s, and now it's not that, it's not the style and it's not
well,
the
it was selling for $98 in the 80s. Whether it was worth it is another,
well, right at the time she spent $98 for it, so it must have been worth it at the time, but now,
except then she never wore it.
right? And
And
so
now, and she's
it's
given it
30 years
away,
old.
and now she's given it away, and someone else is wearing it, presumably.
Presumably, and they spent $10 for it. Okay.
And so, but May retrieve that value. It was so. I think the important point here is it had this artificial value
Mm-hmm.
of $98 because that's the price tag that was still on it
Right.
40 years later.
Right.
But in the real world, whether somebody spent $1 for it or $5 at the thrift store or $10, they got a blouse that they can wear, and that's
Exactly.
and that's a real value. That's a purpose and a meaning
Mm-hmm.
for that thing.
And a use that is, that's in use.
Suzanne says, I'm liking this, Ed and Gail. Something deep here, values, uncertainty, fear. I recognize my difficulty in valuing items of clutter is partly that I don't recognize importance 1 to 10. They seem to all carry a yes or no, and defaulting to yes instead of my brain assigning a logical value. Maybe I'll get brave and dump some unread and unused, oops, it jumped away, recipes and articles as an example.
Right. And just know that if you suddenly decide that you need a recipe to make, grilled chicken, you can find a recipe for grilled chicken. And the one that you had doesn't prevent you from finding a recipe that you enjoy and like. And so you can recover even if you let those things go. It'll
Okay,
be
let's
okay.
let's keep going.
Okay, so we wanted to, so that was our discussion of ways that we artificially value um, items and that get in our way. And so we wanted to talk about how to use value to declutter instead. So instead of deciding that an object's fate in your house via one of those values like potential usefulness or sentimentality or society's belief that more is better, let's try to reevaluate what holds true value based on real purpose, joy, or beauty. That way we can help reduce clutter in our space instead of adding to it. So the first one was the idea of assessing purpose and joy. Ask yourself if an item serves a current purpose in your life or brings you genuine joy. And be honest about letting go of things that no longer do that. It's your home and your life and your interests. Does that thing work for who you are right now? Do you want to use it right now? Does it make you joyful to see it? If the answer to these questions is no, then consider that you're actually holding on to clutter instead. Let's embrace the concept of beauty. Recognize that beauty is a valid form of value. Keep items that are beautiful and bring you enjoyment, such as art or family photos, and display them instead of letting them get lost in the clutter. Seeing and interacting with beauty can improve your mood, and beauty is a good measure of value in moderation. If you think everything's beautiful, it may not be a complete filter for what stays in your home, but generally, keeping the version of something that you find beautiful adds weight to its right for to stay with you in the house instead of being decluttered out.
This is a several of our commenters have been kind of anticipating getting to this because Connie said as she's listening to you speak, I gotta find it again. She's sighing as Gail speaks. I have paintings that need to go.
Hmm.
And Michelle added, me too, and some limited edition prints that are now worth very little, although I enjoyed them for 20 years. So I think I've had my money's worth. And
Right? That's a great way to look at it.
but now my tastes have changed. It's too
Mm.
much hassle to sell, as they probably wouldn't survive the post, and are heavy, so it would cost too much to post if I sold them. I think I just need to donate.
Right? And then you think about it this way. Somebody who is into that stuff will find them in a bookstore or in a resale shop somewhere, and they will have the thrill of their life that they have found this thing on one of their hunts, and it'll be so much fun for them to be able to collect that book on one of their shopping, hunting sessions where they're looking for their interest in this kind of book. And so put it back out in the wild and let somebody else find it. And I think your point that you've had it for 20 years and you've gotten 20 years of enjoyment out of it is perfectly valid. And like, yeah, I spent my time with it and now I can let somebody else play with it. That's a perfectly reasonable way to say, I'm done with this one and I can move it on. I also want to suggest that you prioritize current value over potential future value. Consciously decide that your current space and your peace of mind are more valuable than the possibility of needing an item in the future. Feeling less buried every day in your present is a way more important than feeling like your stockpile of maybe in the future goods is big enough. Keeping all those maybe in the future items will seriously crowd you out while you're waiting to need one of them. Someday, one thing may come in handy, but using it in the future will only remove one item from the pile of stuff. You will have been living in a very crowded space all that time, and at the end, only one thing gets removed from the pile. So I think you have to acknowledge that how you live right now, your current comfort level and peace of mind is really valuable and important to you. And stocking a bunch of things against future need while simultaneously jamming up your current comfort is not a good trade-off because the person that's losing there is you. Only to have that one moment sometime maybe in the future where that one item suddenly becomes used. That's a poor trade-off for a long time of living in an overcrowded space. We also want to make a comment about differentiating between possessions and identity. I think this is an important one to pay attention to as you decide what needs to stay and what needs to go. Understand that you can keep items that represent your history without letting them take over your space. You can create a curated collection that reflects your story rather than a chaotic pile of things. Understand that buying the next great iteration of a thing does not make you a better person. Having more Christmas decor to add to your collection doesn't make you a better mom. The things in your life are not what makes you great. So recognizing that you don't have to have a whole bunch of things in the house to prove who you are and why you're valuable as a human. That's not really what defines who you are. What you own does not define who you are. And so letting go of some of those excess things isn't diminishing you as a person. It isn't diminishing your value as a human and to the people in your lives and to your purpose on the planet. And so don't hold on to them just because you think they reflect your identity. And we've talked about, everybody has keepsakes and everybody needs sentimental things. And the importance is just to curate that collection so that it is not every single thing from your past still hanging around. You can have a representative sample of, I used to do this job, or I used to have this interest, and now I moved on to other things. I've grown, I've aged, I've changed, and I have a representative sample of some of my history, but most of my space is about who I am now. And that's always a better focus than drowning in all of your history in the house.
Also there's the issue of with stuff that has been passed down to you, there's the issue of whether the values of the people who collected it were in alignment with your values now. And
Mm-hmm.
we all have some people in our family backgrounds who maybe would have made different choices than the ones we make.
Right?
And I'm looking at the diamond and thinking, if I inherited a diamond and then learned that it was a blood diamond, that it was a diamond that people gave their lives for because it was mined in a war-torn part of the world.
Right.
I don't think I'd want to keep that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure what would be an appropriate way to dispose of it. I suppose you could sell it and donate the money if that helped your
Right.
conscience or something like that. But
Right.
um, I think, like memorabilia that you find offensive or
Yeah. I think it's okay to release.
yeah.
100%. If it was important to them, they live with it and they had it in their house and you've inherited it and it doesn't reflect your values, then you can release it out into the wild. Your house needs to be about what's important and valuable to you, 100%. And so if you inherit some stuff that doesn't go with who you are, la la la, off it goes. Okay, so the last one I'm going to talk about is that I want you to focus on abundance and not scarcity. So shift your mindset from one that fears scarcity to one that embraces the abundance that you have, allowing you to make better choices about what to keep. Fearing scarcity just makes you feel smaller and less able to take care of yourself. Recognize what you have as supporting yourself well and trust that you will continue to support yourself well. You don't need a bunch of extra things to feel abundant and successful. That feeling feeling abundance is not about item count. It's not about how many thousands of things that you have. Feeling abundant is about feeling like you have the right things around you that you need to live your life in the way that you want to live. And that hasn't anything to do with the count and how many things you have. It's all about whether you have the stuff around you that is important to you and valuable to you and supportive to you and what you're doing right now and who you are right now. And that's a much better goal. And then how many things can I have in the house? How big of an item count can I have? We're definitely a product of our culture in the United States, and I'm sure there's some versions of it elsewhere, but we've been all about the stuff for a long time. And the reason I have a business and a career is because those of us that have spent our lives collecting things are now drowning in it, and we don't want to be anymore. And so I think shifting to I have plenty and I'm going to continue to have plenty of what I need to live my life. And by plenty, I don't mean item count. I mean by I'm going to have enough. I'm going to have enough to do what I need to do and to be living my life. And I think that's the mindset that we hope that you can aim for instead of being afraid that if you let go of something, you're not going to have what you need. I think we all have versions of I don't have something right now and and we always can recover, right? There's always a way to recover. And so that's what we hope for you. We hope that it will be a focus on abundance and you can surrender being afraid that you're going to run out, that you're not going to have enough. And we're here to help you get there. So thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed this concept, this discussion about values and shifting it into from a different point of view so that you can let go of some of the clutter that's been hanging you up all this time.
We have time for a few more comments.
Okay?
Maureen quoted you, and this was talking about, I'm not sure, I mean, this was definitely talking about monetary value, but you
Mm,
said you've wasted more money than this. And
right.
Maureen says, I should have those words etched somewhere in my house, Gayle.
Right. Oh my gosh, that's so true. I
She
mean,
goes on, she goes on to say, talking about collectibles and antiques. Antiques Roadshow now shows old episodes with item values from 20 years ago,
right.
and values today, it's nearly always much, much less.
Right? It shifts over time. And so they do that, green arrow, red arrow thing to show when we evaluated it in 2020, I mean in 2000, it was worth $500 and now the value is $200. Like they tell you that, 20 years have elapsed and the value of the item has held steady or fallen down or risen. And a lot of times the values dropped because the what was interesting back then, it had its moment in time when it was popular and everybody was focused on it, and now it isn't that the object has changed, it's that now everybody's interest has drifted to the next thing, and so then it makes the demand for it less and the price goes down. Happens everywhere.
Terry says, Gail's comments on just in case or future value brings to mind a light variant of Dana K. White, Will I remember I have it?
Yeah.
Will I know where it is?
Exactly. Exactly. Right? Like you have those extra 3,000 items against the possibility of the two that come up. And then it's like, okay, where in the 3,000 items is that thing that's going to solve this problem today that I've been saving against the future potential?
Mhm.
And, half the time, more than half the time, you can't find the thing that you think that you are going to suddenly use now anyway. And you give up and you go to the store and buy another one because you can't find it. So then you've lived with it all this time and not been able to find it, and it's there being clutter, and you still couldn't use it when the time arose, when the opportunity presented itself. So, yeah, just saying. Dana Kay and I agree on that one for sure.
Summer says there are lab grown diamonds now that are disrupting
Mm.
the entire diamond market.
Yeah, isn't that cool?
That's good news. Yeah.
It was talking about that. Yeah, that
Well,
they're growing them in labs. I didn't realize that.
and I read a little bit on the topic because don't want to ever be making assertions that are based on, something I heard decades ago and
Mm,
clung to. And I read that younger people are overwhelmingly opting for lab-grown diamonds. And when your choice is a $4,000 wedding ring versus an 8,000 or engagement ring versus an $8,000 engagement ring, it's easy to see how you would make that choice.
right. Like I think the 4,001 is a better choice, right? Yeah, I mean the whole idea. I remember when they came up with the marketing campaign to say, yes, you should, take 2 months of your annual salary, and that's the budget you should use for a wedding ring. I'm like, oh my God, they're telling you how much money you should spend, and they're convincing the women that are going to get the diamonds that that's how they like. They now have the expectation that you spent 2 months of your annual salary on the wedding ring that you just bought. Like, what a setup for the guy to be like they just baked in how much money you were supposed to spend. It's like, oh my God, that has nothing to do with the person's budget or what's going on with their life or what is their priorities or what they're trying to build or do or grow. And suddenly you're not good enough unless your wedding ring is 2 months of your annual salary. Like marketing blech. Exactly.
Yeah,
Like that was like, oh my God, that is such an artificial construct, and everybody bought it 100%.
yeah. It was it's a
It's absurd.
very successful campaign.
Yes.
Um, Jane says Gail used the terms being buried and drowning. These visuals are motivating. Being claustrophobic, I don't want my home to feel either way.
Oh, very good point. Well, so then I would be curious, if you are claustrophobic, at what level does your possessions start to feel like, does it trigger claustrophobia for you? Like, is there a volume of stuff or a amount of space that you need to have to not feel claustrophobic, to not feel triggered by your own home? I would hope that you wouldn't be triggered. I would, that just, professional interest about at what level makes you feel claustrophobic. Most people feel crowded, but they don't actually feel claustrophobic around the stuff. And so
Yeah.
um, I'd just be curious.
JB says, Ed, I'm against fur, but hard to part with a gorgeous mink jacket that belonged to my mother. It's warm AF, but I'll probably never wear it. Not sure how to evaluate it also. There's probably a platform that specializes in vintage furs. Can relate to the moral dilemma thing.
Right. And that's another market that used to be really invigorated. Everybody saw wearing a fur as a status symbol. It was a huge, they had big values. It was very expensive, and it was a thing. And then it stopped being a thing ethically because of how they got the fur. And so people's interest in wearing fur has drastically changed. And I think that there's a lot of furs out there that people inherited that, they didn't know what to do with. I mean, and my prime example is, I don't know if you remember, Ed, at the Galleria, there used to be a fur store. It was right
Mm-hmm.
at the corner of Post and Westheimer.
Mm-hmm.
Huge business that had been there for decades, and it went out of business. They closed
Yeah.
down because they couldn't, the market had bottomed out. And
Yeah.
it's Houston, for God's sakes. Who can wear, when can you ever wear fur in Houston?
Right?
Never. One day a year you can put on a
To
fur
wear
and not
fur in
die.
Houston, you have to make sure that your house is adequately air conditioned, the limousine is adequately air conditioned, and you'll have a very short walk from the limousine to the well air conditioned space you're going to in the
It's,
fur. That's just all there is
it's
to it.
so true. Like
Yeah.
anybody that wore fur in Houston, it must have just been dying of heat stroke the whole time. Like it was just insane. And so, in Houston, it made absolutely no sense. And the fact that it lasted as long as it did just tells you how status symbol-y it was for so long. And, yeah, not really. We had the same problem. My mother had received a fur as a gift, a retirement gift from her boss of however many decades. And, she loved it. And she lived in North Carolina. And so there was a season that was winter that
Right.
was cold and she could wear it. And then it spent 9 months in fur storage to keep from falling apart. Like when it's in hot weather, it does what fur does in hot weather and it tries to wilt and shed and like yeah, so you have to like pay to put it in cold storage of all things. And so like we don't live in Russia here. We don't live in the frozen north or Alaska. And so furs just don't make sense practically in a lot of places. And it was totally, like I said, it was totally a status symbol that's not necessary.
Okay, we are beyond
Oh, we are.
time.
It's time.
And so I'm going to talk about next week. We're going to be back
Yeah.
same time next week, and we're going to be talking about services that can help you with your decluttering project. Watch your email for an announcement with more details. Watch your email also for an announcement when I post the show notes this week, because that's where you're going to have to go for the weekly tittle because we're out of time.
Okay.
All right. If you're watching this on YouTube, we'd love for you to join us live. To get notifications about upcoming events, we invite you to join the meetup group by visiting cfhou.com/meetup. You can also follow us on Facebook by visiting cfhou.com/Facebook, or join our mailing list by visiting cfhou.com/subscribe. We love to hear from our audience, so please keep your questions, comments, and topic suggestions coming on YouTube, Facebook, or anywhere that you find us. You can always reach us through our website at clutterfairyhouston.com.
Thanks everybody for joining us. I hope that you got some value out of our discussion about values. And we will look forward to seeing you next week. Bye.
Bye bye.